going to be conceding a lot of arguments here, so I probably have enough time to just sort of go through their cards and talk about what they say. They read this Michigan evidence that indicates that says the recession means that there is no possible impact to the economy. It does not spill over to other countries. It does not spread throughout the world. There is no possible relation to that. If it had, it would have already happened. However, there is sustained growth now, which means that it was able to overcome the QE2 and solve in the status quo. However, it doesn't matter because there is no possible impact to economic collapse. Their Dino evidence is as fantastic as the 2NC says it is. It actually indicates that there is no possibility. The Great Depression is a false analogy for everything that's happened now. There is multiple checks in place, i.e. things like international institutions, the G20 and other groups that are able to come in and bail people out when they are in trouble, which means that none of the impacts on their disad matter anymore. People will just come in and save Russia from any sort of oil crisis. They will make a deal with the US for structural adjustment. There will be other intervening actors that prevent any of those impacts from escalating or ever going global. Cooperation to be able to solve. They've conceded on the start decide that we cause cooperation with all of those countries, which magnifies all of their Dino argument claims because it is a specific scenario for why we would be able to get corruption. It also makes a global resiliency argument, which means that there is no terminal impact to any of these things now. They say that there is no labor shortage now. However, there is. Our Koch evidence indicates that there is a massive 2 million shortfall by 2014. Their evidence cites 6 longitudinal studies, but it does not matter because there is no risk of it causing a trade-off or driving it down. At the very least, we send a signal of innovation. Even if we actually hurt the economy, in actual fact, the signal of the plan creates the perception of American openness, which is necessary to solve soft power. It also is necessary to restore the credibility of the economic model, which means that we at very least access a very small internal link. However, there is fundamentally no impact to any of this advantage, which means it's irrelevant. Now, the university's advantage. Yeah, there's really not much of an impact to anything on this flow either. The environment, it's okay, but there's not really a huge impact to it. Biodiversity, take it or leave it. However, they have conceded a separate scenario at the very bottom. She forgot to extend her disease defense. This is not premised off the chemical industry, but rather the ability of graduate schools to conduct microbiology. Crossings was pretty damning that their evidence actually does indicate that there is a shortfall on this specifically in the status quo. This is critical to solving things that overcome antibiotic resistance. This is an independent extinction scenario that the only case is able to access, even though they amended microbiology. In the counterplan text, they have conceded that their counterplan does not go to students, which means it is unable to access the graduate level education, which the vital internal link to this impact is an extinction level impact, could happen at any time, very fast time frame, and does go global, unlike every other impact in this room, which is probably contained by international organizations. Now, the QE2 dissent. We are going to concede the uniqueness for this dissad. We are going to concede the link for this dissad. However, there is no impact to the environment, so their organic pesticides argument is irrelevant. There is no impact to the economy. There is no impact to oil markets, global shock. However, the only part of this debate that matters is they spotted us that the QE2 devalues the dollar. Now, their impact turn to this was that the dollar, killing the dollar is key to manufacturing. Obviously, the only impact of that is the economy, which we all seem to agree is not an impact. However, our impact on the other side was that the dollar is key to soft power. Concede that. They do not have an answer to its key to soft power, which means it accesses all of their soft power cards that the 2NC read. That's like 50 gajillion impacts, all of them end in extinction. They are all reasons to vote affirmative because we are conceding the link to this dissent. Start dissent. The only possible way that they could win this debate is on the Tiger dissent, which is the net benefit to the counterplan. However, they are unable to win this dissent for 3 reasons. First is on the politics. Is that they've conceded the Kane and Litton evidence. A conceded argument is a true argument that the plan is massively popular. Their evidence assumes a congressional atmosphere of a different time when it was massively unpopular. However, given the current economic situation, that they would be massive popularity of the plan. It says Congress would try and rein in for citizenship, but if they saw it as an economic necessity, and all of their evidence, by the way, on the Fed dissent says that everyone does view it as an economic necessity, then they would not backlash against it. This argument makes literally no sense. However, even if you don't like this argument, you do not have to vote on it because you can vote on the Matloff argument that the plan is a stealth passage. It would be tacked onto a bill that no one would even notice going through, which means that they would not have the opportunity to backlash against it, and they would not have the opportunity to include the student-based restriction in the same bill, which is what their Tiger evidence assumes would have to happen, i.e. that the plan would be horse-traded around, and when it was actually passed, that those restrictions would be included. However, if it's a self-pass, then it has already passed by the time that people notice. Conceded arguments and true arguments argument do not allow the 2NR to say anything about any argument on the politics flow. Now, on the startup visa counterplan, I'm going to extend our cream argument, which I do not know how they missed or mishandled. Fiat solves. Yes, we get to pretend a mindset in which congressional endorsement of the visa category means that they would never backlash against it. He actually clarified this argument in cross-ex and said, does this mean that they won't backlash against the plan or the visa category? And we said the visa category in its entirety, which means that fiating the mindset solves all of this. You can prefer our theory argument because it's logical, i.e. Congress that has a majority that votes for a policy would not backlash against an almost identical policy in order to reign, and they will say that they have evidence on this question, but it doesn't matter because it's better for debate. These types of dissents are probably unwinnable, and we should be able to worm our way out of them through tricky theory arguments that you should just check in on. Now the counterplan, the permutation resolves all of the arguments because the only disadd to it is the tiger argument. Now if they've read arguments that the startup visa counterplan is popular, which means that the permutation probably at very least provides a shield for all of these arguments. Now the question of the 2AR is which is the bigger internal link, the collapse of the US dollar or a few student restrictions in terms of US soft power? Obviously the US dollar is a bigger link to soft power because it is the symbol of our national economy, which means even if we lose the link to the tiger dissent, we probably still win because we are the only team that accesses the bigger internal link to the soft power because they literally justify the counterplan as crushing the dollar. Now they say that it links to the first part of the counterplan, but if they don't do that, then they can't access an extinction scenario, which means it is try or die for the affirmative plan, and there's only a risk that it doesn't link to any part of the counterplan because there's no evidence that says so.
What do we have?
You have 836.